What's up everyone? Lance Hedrick here, and today I have an especially exciting video for you. I am presenting the xBloom, and I'll explain here in a second why I'm so excited. Now, before jumping into a review of the xBloom, I will ask that you would take a moment, maybe hit the like, hit the subscribe. If you enjoy the work that I make, it all really helps me. The growth on here actually does translate into more opportunities with different machines like this, and I'll explain that here in a second. Anyway, the xBloom is an exciting machine, and it's exciting for a plethora of reasons, but probably the most exciting reason that you should be super stoked on is I've been consulting on this project for about 7 months now. Yeah, about in February of 2022, I don't know when you'll watch this video, but back in February, this company reached out to me and asked if I would consult on this. Now, the initial deal was that it would not be a public relationship. I wasn't going to review it. I don't review things if I consult on the back end because there's obviously bias there. So anyway, they were fine with that. They just wanted my input because they know that I know something about brewing and grinding and how those things should work out. So we consulted for the following 6 or so months, and they were very, very receptive to everything I told them. And in fact, a lot of this has come from conversations that I have had with them. And as the time went on, they asked if I would join the advisory board. I was hesitant to do this because, well, I don't do that. As you've noticed, I'm not partnered with any company in a way like that. So it took a lot of thinking, honestly, and I finally decided to join the advisory board because of simply how receptive they were to all the feedback I gave. Honestly, a lot of this is almost exactly what I asked them to do, and they materialized it. So anyway, I wanted to disclose that. I am on the advisory board of xBloom, so I am biased, but they have done what I've asked. So if you're wondering, I wish Lance would make a grinder, which I've had a lot of people ask, this I essentially helped make this to what they were envisioning, which we'll get into. I kind of created this. I think it's a fantastic grinder. I helped with the flow of water coming out of this, everything. So this wasn't just a, hey, endorse this product. This was a, come along, hold our hand, let's do this together. And then I decided to join the advisory board right before this launch. So it's now me and Scott Rayo are the two main advisors that I'm aware of on the project, so I'm really excited about that. But let's go ahead and jump into this. What is the xBloom? You're probably watching this like, okay, I get it. You helped with it. What is it? So this is essentially a pour-over machine, but it is set up to be like a pod machine, meaning you have whole beans in a pod, you scan it, and the machine does all the rest. This side grinds for you, this side brews for you. Now, this was created by some people who had worked at Apple for a long time. You can probably see some of the inspiration there, but it has a really sleek design and is absolutely fantastic. So let's go ahead and jump into how this works exactly. Okay, so this is what a pod will look like. All right, it comes with a paper lid right there, and it is all compostable. So all of this, you could grow a plant in it, you could toss it in compost, whatever. The only bit that isn't is the RFID tag on the bottom. This is can be recycled though. So it's just a little thing, you just peel it off, good to go. Here, I'll just show you what that looks like now. Boom, we peeled it off, all right. Boom. So we have a compostable thing that's made out of bamboo and sugarcane. So yeah, compostable. Very nice. So essentially all you do is whenever you get this, what comes inside of it is a little filter that's kind of like a Kalita filter. When you open this up, you have pre-weighed 15 grams of coffee beans. So what would happen whenever you get one of these is you would tear the top off like so. Inside you'd have that paper filter and you'd have coffee beans that are already in there. So after you rip the lid off, you'll have 15 grams of beans that are pre-weighed. So you don't even need to use a scale for this at all. You take that, and then on the bottom, we've ripped the tag off, but I've got one here. What you're gonna do is you're gonna match the logo of the tag to the logo on top of the machine, and it beeps. And as you see, it fills in whatever recipe. This is more for visuals than anything else. Then all you do is you place this here. You'll push down on the little cup holder and it starts. This will move over, it will grind. I'll show you this in a second. It comes back and it brews your coffee and you're done. It brews a beautiful cup of coffee, you're ready to go. So the idea is once xBloom partners up with a lot of roasters, the roasters themselves, when they give the beans to xBloom inside the pods, they will configure their own recipe for whatever coffee there is. So let's imagine that this had Onyx Coffee Labs, Southern Weather. Onyx would, the roaster in Arkansas that I work with, Onyx would create a recipe and it would be downloaded onto some sort of file that connects with that RFID tag. Then once you get your pod of Southern Weather, all you do is rip the lid off, you tap here to make it beep, it will load automatically the recipe that Onyx has crafted. You dump this in, put it on the tray, click down, and boom, it's going to give you the exact recipe that they have crafted. So it's a very simple process, but of course I know there are a lot of you out there that would like a little bit more. So there's actually an app that comes with this and you can control the temperature, the amount of pours, whether or not the arm right here vibrates during the pour. You can control, I've already said grind size, you can control the pour pattern. Right now we have center pour, there's a spiral in and spiral out pour, and just a circle pour. You can control a lot of these different types of variables in order to tailor the extraction to your desires. On top of all this, the subscription to coffee roasters is not the only way to get your coffee in this. xBloom is now selling a reusable pod. Now this is something I specifically requested of them, and this is actually the tipping point of what made me want to be an advisor. I was thinking if this is only a subscription company where you can only use it if you get these pods, I wasn't that interested. But once they immediately responded with, yes, let's collaborate, make this reusable pod, I was all in. And so they showed me what it was. They used the exact material I asked of them, which is a highly durable plastic that is very safe, but that's for better heat retention, ease of cleaning, and it's not going to break. It's not going to have any issues. If we were to choose metal, that's going to suck heat out, and you're already losing heat as the stream goes down. If we were to use ceramic, that's easy to break. Glass, easy to break. This is a very easy to clean, highly durable material that will have a high heat retention, so you can have an incredible brew regardless of the beans that you're using. I love it. It's sleek and it works really well. And it uses Kalita 155 filters. So whenever you get the reusable pod, you just toss one of these in there. You can use it every day with whatever coffee you want. So let's get nerdy and let's talk about the specs of this machine. Inside you have a 1300 watt heating element for the water side. Now that is going to heat the water almost instantaneously, and you'll see that in a second when we actually brew one. There's also the capability of drawing only 200 watts to preheat the water. So if it's in the cold months or you're in a cold area and the machine is cold when you wake up, it will preheat it to about 80 degrees Celsius with a slow, low preheating during the grinding phase, which takes about 20 seconds. So there's a 1300 watt heating element, absolutely incredible, and it draws less than half of the power of just boiling a kettle of water. So if you're looking at electricity usage or sustainability, this has a much lower draw of electricity in order to heat that water up. When we look over at the grinder, it's 48 millimeter burrs that have a similar geometry to grinders like the AZ Presso K Plus, the Lagome Mini, the typical heptagonal cone burr, and it rotates at around 200 RPM, which is ideal in what I asked for in order to provide the most consistent grounds possible for filter. With conical burrs, I have talked about in the past how higher RPM is not desirable for filter coffee, so we went down to 200. Instead of putting a PID controller on the motor for the grinder, which by the way is rated at 120 watts. It can draw 8 amperage though, so it can go up to about 170 watts if needed with lighter roasted coffees, but shouldn't be needed because we're only doing filter roast. Anyway, with this, we have no PID controller because we want to control the voltage instead. So what that means is, in the morning, if you want a really quiet grind and you have a darker roasted coffee, it's not going to go all the way up to 200 RPM. It's going to understand it's easier to break, and it's going to lower the amount of volts needed in order to crank through, give the torque necessary to get through those beans. Of course, if it's a really hard bean, well, it's going to be a little bit louder generally, and so it's going to go up to the higher end of that because it's putting more power into it in order to break those beans up. So you have variable RPM based off of the coffee you're using, but it will maintain, because of the power of the motor, it will maintain that RPM throughout the grinding process. It takes about 1 gram per second grind time. So for 15 grams, you have a 15 or 16 second grinding time. During that time is when the preheating is occurring to about 80 degrees Celsius, then it flash heats it right as it's brewing because it has that 1300 watt heating element. All right, so now let's go ahead and get into the brewing. What I'm gonna do during this is I'm gonna take my fluke and my little little probe, temperature probe, and I'm gonna just read off the temperature there for a bit. So this, when I was advising with them, I told them that we needed to get this up to 210 Fahrenheit or about 99 Celsius just before boiling. And so they did that. They made it so the water would get all the way to that temperature, but of course there's going to be a temperature difference from where it is exiting, where the heating element, and coming out of the spout. So obviously there will be a few degrees drop there. Same thing with a kettle. Once it goes through the gooseneck of a kettle, you're losing temperature. So that is going to be the case here, but I wanted to show that it has more than sufficient slurry temperature. So let's go ahead. I've created a recipe through the app, which the app's not finished, so I'm not going to show you just yet, but what I have it set up to is I have grind size. There's going to be 20 settings on here. I have it at grind size 15, so on the coarser side. I have a ground to water ratio of 1 to 17. These are all options in the app. I have the bloom set for 100 or right off boiling, 99 Celsius. So it's going to come out cooler, obviously. And then I have 45 milliliters come out, and I have the vibration option on. So something else that I talked with them about that they did is I was talking about how, I like to do the swirl. There's no real way of making the swirl, but they did make it vibrate, which is a fantastic option and actually may be preferable to the swirl. All I'm trying to do is settle the bed, so if any channels occur, it'll settle it out, right? So you can choose whether you want the vibration on or off. I have it on for the bloom. I have put in a pause. You can do as much time as you want for the pause. Second pour, I have the temperature, the water volume, the pattern I want. For the second one, I have a swirl pour. And for the final pour, I have a center pour with some vibration on there, and I've dropped the water temperature as well. So I'm confirming that, and I'm gonna hit start after I load the beans in. So let me get those beans weighed out, and we'll start the brew. So I weigh out 15 grams. I'm going to take this 15 grams. No RDT needed. We have little tech on the bottom that helps with anti-static. This little piece. Okay. Boom. Then what we're going to do is I'm going to dump the beans in. Now I'm just going to, I have a pod there, but we're going to go and replace it. I'm freaking out the machine. All right. So there we go. And then I have my recipe on here ready. So I'm going to click start. I guess I should put a decanter underneath. All right. So here it goes. So it's grinding at that 15 size, and this is a really, really hard bean, and it's grinding through it no issue. Grinding there. Oh, the aroma is incredible. And it speeds up at the end to make sure there's no retention. Speeds up, make sure all of it's shot out. We're done. And here we go. We come over here, and it's instantly heating. Bang. It's shaking to level out the grounds. And it's shaking as it's pouring. So as it's filling up with water, it is shaking to minimize any channels that could be occurring. All right. Let's get it all the way to our weight for the bloom, and there we are. So this is still in prototype phase. The shake is going to happen more at the end. This is a very early unit. There's some things that we're still working on, like that, but yeah. Then it's going to come again. So right now, the grinder is not standalone, but that is something that we will be working on in order to make this a standalone grinder, so you could control with even more steps because it's motor controlled for the burst spacing, so very accurate. We're going to have that as a capability as we continue to work on this. Here goes the second pour. I have it shaking as well with a spiral pour. So this is going to be the biggest pour throughout the whole brew. Is this second pour right here. As you see, it's still going. Now there's technology in here. If you have the grounds too fine, it can sense with an algorithm inside the weight of the water pushing down on the pod, and it will stop so it doesn't overflow. So let's say I have a 100 milliliter pour programmed in, but I have the grounds too fine, so it's filling up too quickly. Since this is not a person that can see with their eyes, it's not draining, there is an algorithm built into the scale built in so that it knows to stop. And if that is the case, it will stop and add another pour. It will continue to add pours until it is able to go through. That way you can truly leave this alone, walk to another room, and you're not going to have a mess when you come back because of that algorithm built in. So we're doing the final pour right here. I may have had the grind too fine because it is, I think it just broke up the pour. We'll see. Yep. So I had to grind just a little bit too fine for this specific coffee to be as aggressive as I was on the brew. The brew I had broken down to 3 pours for 255 mils. As you can see, this is a small brewer. The cup itself is the brewer, and since it's quite tiny, it's a little, you have to go quite coarse to get it done in just 3 pours. But I've been able easily, successfully, to get really high extractions with this, up in excess of 22, 23. Here at the end, we have a temperature slurry of 86, 87. It was at 88 just a second ago. Staying at 86, going back up to 87. It's just kind of oscillating there. All right, we're at 87, something like that. So the slurry temp is right where we'd expect it to be, right around 90. I should have probably probed it earlier on, but we were talking, we were having a good time. So that's kind of how this bad boy works. It sits there, it has the program streams in there. You don't have to use the app if you don't want to, but it has everything else already built in. So it's an all-in-one machine. You don't have to buy a kettle, a scale, all these other things. It's all in one, uses less electricity, and is gonna give you recipes by some of the best roasters in the world. So once we're done, we just check out that cup. It's gonna beep here in a second, but I already know it's done. We can go ahead and take this out, take a look at it. It's gonna drip a little bit because it's still a little wet. And what we can do is we can take a quick refractometry of it. We're gonna weigh the beverage, which came out at 220.1, which is actually fantastic because we had 255 grams of water that was dispelled or dispersed over the bed. So we got a 220.1 beverage weight. I multiply that by the TDS, which is 1.5. And then we divide that by our dose, which was 15. That's a 22% extraction yield. That's fantastic. So that happened right there on this machine. It had, I went through and actually off camera measured the slurry again. It's consistently at 90. That last pour is when it dipped down to 87, 88, which makes sense. But anyway, so let's take a sip. Fantastic. Absolutely delicious. Loads of black currant, loads of red fruits. Really vibrant. But of course, this could be done with any coffee, with darker roast, lighter roast. It doesn't really matter because whatever roaster you buy from, they're going to have their recipe loaded in. If you're nerdy enough to use your own coffee, I'm sure that you'll know intuitively off the app how to set it up. It's pretty easy. And there's going to be preloaded recipes on there as well, default ones that you can use even. So I'm really excited about this. I'm excited that you listened to my ideas when it came to the grinder and to the flow rate, which, by the way, if you've noticed, there is a breakup in stream, which I am going to work on as well to ensure a little bit more laminar flow until it hits so we can have deep turbulence. So I'm trying to get a little faster flow coming out so you don't visually see the breakup. I want that to happen right as it's hitting that water so we have that nice deep turbulence, as discussed in previous videos. We also have just really nice thermal conductivity inside that temperature stays really consistent throughout, which is going to really give you a lot of control over your brew. And of course, in every step, you can change that. That with the water bending technology that they have come up with at xBloom, which is absolutely brilliant. As you see, that stream just kind of bends on its own. Not really, but it does bend. And in order to allow us to have those certain pour patterns, we're able to produce incredibly well and even extracted cups with compostable pods from roasters all around the world or your own roasters in your local area, depending on how you're wanting, what route you're wanting to go. So the idea here is to give people the ability to jump into specialty coffee without the intimidation factor, without the fear of having to buy all of this different equipment. Now, whenever people are seeing influencers online, they see them with, like me, a $150 scale, a $200 kettle, and all this really nice equipment just to start brewing your coffee. And so the idea behind this was to break down those walls, bring accessibility to the people in a real tangible way with people who know what they're doing. And so I'm excited to be partnered with Scott Rayo, to be partnered with Brian Kwan on this project in order to create something that will allow everyone to enjoy coffee. And not just coffee, specialty coffee. That has always been my drive for this channel, is to make specialty coffee more accessible. I don't care how you brew your coffee, just buy better coffee. And I think this will be an important driver to that future. Anyway, if you're interested in this project, I have a link to the Kickstarter. So I'll get a little kickback on that, which would be fantastic. It's not any extra expense to you, but if you're interested, please check that out. I would love all the support possible because I am really excited about this and I'm so humbled to be a part of the advisory board for it. I have a lot of hopes that this will convert a lot of people to specialty. So if you're watching this and you are someone that's been on the edge, it's currently at a sale price on the Kickstarter. Take a look there. I don't know how long that will last whenever you're watching this video. It could be over by the time you see this video, but we're excited about the next steps with this machine. protein. Be prepared to see more about this from me, mostly on Instagram, but I'm sure I'll post some updates here as well. Thank you so much for your time. Until next time, brew something tasty. I'll be sitting here enjoying my coffee. So, cheers.